No problem.
Thank you for having me in this event. My name is Liselott Örtlund. I'm located in Karlstad in Sweden. I work at a small company called IB Solutions as a solutions architect. And recently I started a new position as CTO. I've been a developer since 2000 and I run into BizTalk in 2009. And I've been a BizTalker since then. In the last couple of years, I've been working with the integration in Azure. So, my session will be a story about investments in BizTalk using XSLT. Now I expect many companies migrating to the cloud. And the question is, do you need to rewrite your XSLT or transforms? No, I don't think so. There are various versions of XSLT or complexity with transforms and various ways of reusing XSLT. I will walk through a couple of things that I've run into the last years, and I hope you will find it interesting and gain some knowledge. There are some challenges that I've run into, and I don't have the solution to everything, so you will have to take it as it is. If we start out with the different transforms that we do have in BizTalk, foremost, in the best of worlds, we use common XSLT with the call templates inside the XSLT transform. But some of us like to use C# scripts. I'm one of those. And maybe you have used extension objects or been calling external assemblies from BizTalk. Common XSLT transforms are straightforward to use, but then when we get to the other versions of XSLT, there might be some challenges. So, for example, C#, as I mentioned, it isn't supported in all artifacts in Azure. And I had listed external assemblies on my PowerPoint, but I'm actually not going to go into that very deeply. I prefer myself to write simple XSLT, not using functoids and the mapper in Visual Studio. There are also some things to consider regarding XSLT versions. We're going to look a little closer to logic gaps and Azure functions. So there are some restrictions regarding the versions. It's only the logic gap consumptions that has support for various versions of XSLT. The other ones only support XSLT 1. In my examples, I have used XSL compile transform, and that XSLT processor supports XSLT 1 as well. So we're going to look at 3 ways of executing XSLT. And of course, there are some pros and cons with the different ways of executing transforms. I have chosen to add my transforms as embedded resource in my projects and load them into the XSL compile transform method or processor. So the transform will run in memory, and as you know, functions have limitations regarding input messages, request size of 100 megabytes. And also, if you are storing the transform in the function, it's a limitation of memory. If you are going to run your XSLT in Azure function, also think about how you set up the function with your storage and function app. The best performance is if they run in the same region and if you have a separate storage account for each function. If we look at logic app consumption, you will need an integration account. And when you build your logic app, you will pay per execution, so be careful not to add too many actions. The consumption logic app, as I mentioned, has support for XSLT 1, 2, 3. It also supports Liquid and HIDX. Depending on what integration account you use, there are limitations in the number of artifacts and the size of the artifacts that you can upload to Azure. Regarding performance, it mostly depends on the number of actions in your logic app and if you have external connections. This way of running logic apps, operations are separated into different processes. We will also look a little bit at logic app standards. I have chosen the stateless workflows. For logic app standard, you don't need an integration account. Currently, only XSLT 1 is supported. There is no limit for map file size, but if you do run big maps, it will affect performance when you do run the logic apps in a stateless way. Built-in operations and their connections run locally in the same process in your workflows, so you will have a good performance. If we look at the different kinds of XSLTs, the common XSLT, simple one, or perhaps it's not simple, but it's kind of straightforward, only XSLT. It works well in both functions and logic apps. And I would say it's best practice. If we look to the inline C#, which I've preferred many times during the years, it actually got me into some difficulties trying to sort it out. I found out that scriptbox are not supported in all versions of .NET Core. And the same goes for logic app standards. For the logic app consumption, it works like it does in BizTalk, simpler and easy, very nice. But then you, of course, need the integration account. So this was an error that I got. Compiling scripts is not supported. So I sneaked around and I found another way to do this similarly by using extension objects. That is, your XSLT is calling a class that is stored in a C# component, working together with your XSLT. I couldn't find out a way to do this in logic apps. Maybe there is, but I have not tried it out. So let's see. Another way of solving issues if you are not able to run scripts in your XSLT might be to use input parameters. It's also out of the box for XSLT and easy to set up in all various ways in functions and logic apps. Wrong way. You add parameters to C# code, and in the logic app consumptions, if you do have parameters in your XSLT, they will very nicely be available in the transform XML action, and in the logic app standard, you will need to tell the transform that they are needed, but it's easy to set up. So I will show you some of my code. I don't know if it's really very interesting to run a demo, but I will try to show you what I have done. Let's see. So this is a quite simple XSLT. As you see, it's an embedded resource in my Visual Studio solution. And I have a call template for a date formatter, very simple, but nice to have. In my transform helper, I do have the call to Excel compile transform. I do have a input XML. I might have an input parameter. I also send the XSLT string, which I've loaded from my project. Quite simple, not very many rows of code. So this is my XSLT with the input parameter. The parameter is called fixed due date, and I use it to set the date in my transform. And as I showed you, I will add the parameter, and it needs to have the same name as in my transform. So the fixed due date will appear, it must be the same in both the code and in the transform. The inline C#, which I've used a lot earlier, looks like this. You have the script namespace, which also prefixes your script. Very simple example. So try to keep it simple. And when you call, you do it here. So the quite irritating thing is that it works very well when you run it in Visual Studio and when you run it in BizTalk, but it won't actually work then when you try to run it in your Azure function. That was annoying. So that's when I found out about the extension object. Again, you do have a namespace pointing to your object. You make the call via the extension object. And in the code, let's see, we do add the same extension object. Again, the namespace used in the XSLT need to be the same. So this was for the function part. I haven't actually released this to Azure. I've only run it locally because I'm a little bit lazy, maybe. So if we would like to run the transform with input, we put it as a required parameter. Not very exciting to look at a transform, but we do have a body which actually is from a flat file scenario, and we get a very nice Dynamics 365 purchase order header entity. So I realized I didn't refresh my portal, so I thought I was going to show you a little bit about. Let's start with this one. This is my integration account. Here we have the ability to upload schemas and maps and other external assemblies. So I've uploaded a couple of transforms. So in this view, we could choose the XSLT version. And if we look at the logic app that has the same transform requiring an input parameter, it would look like this. And we have this input parameter with the input date. So if I just show see if we got it there. So when I choose my input XSLT, it tells me that I will need to provide a fixed due date. Very nice. So if we run this from Postman, we do have a body the same as before, and we do this time I put it in the header, yes. So we send the we make the call to the logic app. And we get the reply, and the fixed due date was set. So, and then we have the logic app standard. These are my workflows, and you could also provide schemas and maps in the logic standards. Here we do not have a specification for the XSLT version. So if we look at the one with the flow with input parameter, in this case, to make it simple, I actually added a parameter. It's kind of cheating, but and here the difference, if we do it like this, we add a transform XML. So we choose our map, but we don't get the option to set a parameter. It's kind of not that smart as the consumption logic app. And as you also noticed, the input parameter needs to be set in a JSON tag like this. So it's a little more work to figure out by yourself, but quite simple anyway. And there is lots of documentation, so it's quite easy to find out. It says with input, but it doesn't really provide an input, so it's kind of cheating. It's for the point of showing. In this case, you see the format was another one than the one I had in my input parameters. So if we look here, you see that was not cheating anyway. So go back. Of course, there are other ways of doing this. You can run XSLT via API management. You could, of course, refactor your transformation and use link or objects in code. I'm sure there are other solutions as well. I would recommend to keep it simple, and if you don't need to refactor and you have transformations that is working, why not reuse it? So you need to choose artifacts depending on your prerequisites, input file size, of course, size of the transform, XSLT version, and the complexity of your XSLT. And I was really too quick this time because I've finished up my time boxing. I think I'm a little bit nervous and spoke too fast. So I hope you have loads of questions.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Another great session. I'm sure I would do exactly the same thing in your position. So yeah, does anyone have any questions? Please post them in the chat, since we have quite a bit of time until the next session.
Yeah, loads of time. I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it. It just shows you were raring to go. A lot of good feedback so far, so that's really good.
Maybe Nino have some input.
Yes, Nino.
Sure, he do
Yeah,
have.
actually, I was hi.
Yes,
Nice
thank you, Nino.
session. Actually, I have one question. So I've been intrigued by what you say about the performances across Visual Server, Visual Studio. So my question to you is, I'm sure you did a lot now about using XSLT everywhere. So what about just if you can elaborate a bit more for me, just for my understanding, what exactly you meant about performances with Visual Server, Visual Studio, and even more. Did you have also, your feeling and experience in cloud? I mean, integration account. And another thing is, I don't know if you never used also liquid template. And if yes, I'd like to have your opinion on that. So,
No, since I'm a biz talker from the ground, very deeply in that,
yeah, I know that.
I have actually not tried out Link in Liquid in Logic Apps. I did not show the I did actually have a transform running inline C# as well. I did not show that. In the designer, it's exactly the same actually, a different transform. So, but that runs fine as is from BizTalk. So I think that if you do have BizTalk and you're going to Azure, I think that just right now, the best support is using Logic App consumption and the integration account. You have it's most, what do you say, similar to BizTalk. It has the same features and the same strength. When it comes to small and small files, simple transforms, I think Logic App consumption or function might be faster. So more lightweight integrations. But if you are trying to run something more complex and bigger transforms, bigger files, I think integration account is a way to go.
Okay, all right, I got the point. Is so looking about bespoke performances and integration account. I know this is going to be a tricky question, but if you can answer me this question now, I would just curious because I'd like to touch some of the point that maybe I will need to discuss sometime with a customer or if something happened like that. And it's about people just looking to migrate Beanstalk in the cloud or wherever they are doing, if they are doing that. In terms of performances, is there a kind of, I would say, minimal valuable setting for integration account that you actually need to use in order to achieve, I would say, almost the same performances you have in a Visual Server in general? So, or in your opinion, just use integration account, that's fine. So the performances across Visual Server or integration account in terms of transformation are almost the same. You know what I mean for my question? My question is, we use integration account, okay. So is there any tier we need to at least use or respect in integration account in order to achieve good performance? So it's just like that. It is okay like that. I mean, any kind of tier, it's okay.
No, I don't think so, actually. I think you need to pay for it to get the performance.
Yeah, okay. That's what that's what. All right. Okay.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
But then again, it all depends on your prerequisites, what your requirements are. So
Okay.
And yeah.
Because I remember from Beanstalk. This time I'm not using Beanstalk long time. I'm using Beanstalk anymore. But I remember the concept about pre-compiling, mapping, all these kind of things. So I'm assuming it should be the same feature in integration account.
And I believe that's why I felt that the transforms using XSL compile transform was slow because I did not pre-compile my transforms while I did those demos. I run the XSLT, so maybe the inline C# will work if I had compiled my transforms before running them in my function.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. That's an interesting point. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Very nice session.
Thank you.
Good content. Thank you.
I think we have a question from Jesper, who asks, what are the options I have if I want to do XLST in code and I'm not on the net framework version, e.g. decompiling existing third parties?
Oh. You said in code.
Yeah, this is a question posed on the chat. Yes. What are the options I have if I want to do XLST in code?
Actually, I believe that you will be able to run your code in the integration account, having XSLT calling external assembly. But I did not try that out myself. I've used XSLT in very simple scenarios in Azure, so this was kind of challenging myself to try new ways. So I really doesn't get the experience of running external assemblies in integration accounts. When it comes to Azure Functions, you could use the extension object way of doing the transform. So, but did you say you would run external third-party assemblies? I haven't tried that. I've only tried code that I manage myself.
Okay.
If that's what was answering the question.
I believe so. Yeah, this was just one post in the chat. Does anyone have anything else to ask? If you have anything you'd like to go over or add to your session, feel free to.
I see some of my colleagues are joined, so maybe Magnus have something to add.
Sure. People can also request to speak if they prefer that.
Maybe he felt that I jumped at him. He wasn't prepared for that.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Well, let me see. I was taken by surprise there. So you wanted me to comment on the XSLT
I know you have
or
done
alternatives?
Yes, I know you have done some other stuff.
Yeah, I prefer to work with the Azure function and mainly using link primarily to do this kind of mappings. You also have the possibility to use the NuGet, where it's named Mapper. That's the next thing for me to investigate and see how it works. They say it should be faster and better than using the link as it is. But I found that the link, once you get to know it and you be familiar with it, it's so simple to create these mappings. Just to create the XML or JSON, you can go from flat files to JSON to the XML or vice versa, or the other way around. So I strongly recommend to check it out and try it out.
Good point.
And there are, yeah.
Thank you.
I guess that's it. Yeah, no problem.
Oh my, this was embarrassing. I hope you you had some things to bring along after the session anyway. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so our next session is due to start at 8, but we're not quite ready for that yet. I believe Email Alashi is on the call, but we like to start it sort of on the time so that if people wanted to join for that specific session, they know when to do that. So what I think we'll do, I think it's probably best if we take a short break and come back at 8 ready for EMAD's session. Is everyone happy with that? Okay, so what we'll do, we'll come back here in 24 minutes and we'll see each other then.